Welcome to another episode of the Complete Performance Exercise Breakdown video series, where I take different episodes from your training sessions, ones that you're doing in the gym or at home, and break them down and give you the technique, help you understand the muscles that you're supposed to be targeting, some common mistakes, and where to implement them and how to implement them into your programming. Right now, I'm going to start diving into a specific location on the body for the next few weeks. The glutes, the butt, the area that we don't want to sag down, that we want to always firm up and tighten up a little bit more. So, my first exercise in diving into the glutes is called a side lying leg raise. Now I'll show you what it looks like in a bit, but I want to first tell you the area or the muscle that we're targeting. So since we're going to talk a lot about the glutes, we're going to talk about first the function of the glutes overall. They move the hip in a number of planes. And when we get down into the position for the sideline leg raise, the area that we're trying to target is the lateral portion of the glute. We're trying to hit the upper glute, the lower glute, and the glute med. But it's hard to separate. You can't separate the three parts of the glute: the maximus, the medius, and the minimus. We're trying to target one specific area, but in reality, we are working to strengthen all parts of the glute to give it more definition and to give it more strength. So here is a side lying leg raise. You're gonna set up onto the floor. I lie with my arms straight out from my shoulder, but I also have clients who are more comfortable lying on their side with their hand underneath their head. From here, it does not matter if your knee is bent or if it is straight out. It's personal preference. Personally, I prefer to have it bent at the knee, but what is most important is that these hips are fully extended. We don't want to lie with a bend in our hip, so we don't want any creases in our hip here. So lying straight, top leg is going to be straight out from the hip. You're gonna have shoulders stacked, hips stacked, knees stacked, and if my foot was down here, I'd have my foot stacked. Now, from this point, I am going to place my hand on my hip because that's a good physical cue for me to look at and observe what my hips are doing. So I am going to squeeze my glutes, and I'm going to lead with the heel and raise that leg up to about 45 degrees and come back down. Up and back down. Simple, trying to squeeze the glute, trying to target. Sometimes if my glutes are struggling to fire, I don't feel like I'm getting a good burn, I might actually stick my thumb into my glute so that it's also a physical cue to the brain of where this muscle and which muscle should be targeted. Now, the side lying leg raise has a few common mistakes. One of them I already touched on. The first is allowing there to be a crease in the hip. When there's that crease in the hip, we're bringing the quad, which is already dominant, especially if you're a female. We're bringing the core in and we're taking away some of that glute usage. So make sure that we have straight legs, there is no crease in that hip. Second one that I see is, and the reason I told you to put your hand on your hip is because when I see people who don't, they roll back this way. Well, that just did the same thing that created. So you started with a straight, fully extended hip, and you raised up and created a hip crease. We never want to have a frontal crease in a side lying leg raise. So that's why I place my hand here. I put my elbow up toward the ceiling and I watch. If I were to roll backward, I'm going to feel it in my hand and through my arm. If I roll forward, which very, very few people do, but it does happen, I'm gonna feel it. And I'm gonna be able to feel that my leg just goes straight up and back down because my arm and my hand don't move. The last and maybe most important one to this exercise is that more is not better. This is a small movement. It's one to just fire up and target those glutes. So it's just as important to pay attention to how high you're raising. Typically about a 45-degree angle is the best bet. If you can't raise up to that 45-degree mark and you only get 30 degrees, that's perfectly fine. But really make sure that you're going just to your range of motion. And it's not an exercise we're meant to push range of motion any further. Now, let's talk about where to apply these into a program. For me personally, I like to use them as precursor for squats or as part of a warm-up for a lower body day. Something that I'm going to use to get my glutes to fire to prepare them for a squat day, a deadlift day, lunges, some type of leg accessory day. They are not a metric-based lift, which means you're not going to track how many reps you do. You're not going to add resistance to it. You're just going to use it to warm up for your metric-based lifts. So in programming, I recommend 2 to 3 sets of about 15 to 20 reps. Really make sure that we're getting that glute to fire. By the end of the set, you should feel that glute burning. If you're not, what I recommend is trying to squeeze the cheeks together as you raise that leg out. Thank you for checking out another episode of the Complete Performance Exercise Breakdown video series. If you would like to find out more information on different exercises, how to break them down, and how to use them in training, feel free to shoot me a message, let me know which ones you're looking for. Stay tuned for further episodes in how to specifically target the glutes, and I can't wait for more glute exercises.